Hey everyone, I'm your fellow movie buff, and yes, it is time to check out the Snyder Cut. Now before I give my full in-depth review on this movie, I'd like to give a little bit of a backstory to those of you who might not exactly know what the Snyder Cut is or how it came about. Now, back when the original Justice League was released, Zack Snyder was supposed to be the director. He was the director for that movie. If you're not familiar with him, he was the director of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. This was going to be his final movie in his trilogy of films in the DC universe. However, about midway through production, his daughter tragically took her own life, and he obviously had to leave the production. He left midway through the project and left everything in the hands of the then producer, Joss Whedon, who took over as director. Now, what happened after that is a little bit up to rumors, a little bit up to facts. The facts are that Whedon did many reshoots to take away Snyder's scenes in the film and to rework his vision into something that he didn't intend to have. The rumors of him mistreating many of the actors and being discriminatory towards them is up for debate. There are several allegations towards him at this point in time of his mistreatment of actors during his reign as director in this film. But overall, the experience for the actors and everyone around him and the fans was very distasteful, very negative, and what came out of his vision, Joss Whedon's vision, was the 2016 version of Justice League, which everyone infamously hated. The critics hated it, the fans hated it even more, and everybody was so disappointed in 2016's Justice League. And all of that is really attributed to Joss Whedon. Zack Snyder had the original vision, the general storyline was the same, but Joss Whedon changed it so much that it was practically uncomparable to Zack Snyder's Justice League. So, a little bit after that happened, a little bit after Justice League, the original one came out, Zack Snyder started to tweet out saying that his version of the film was still possible, that it could still possibly come out. He said that many of his scenes were not included in the film, but that many of his scenes were already finished and ready to be put together for a movie, and for his cut of the film. So, what ensued was everyone started to use the hashtag #ReleaseTheSnyderCut. All the actors were using it, Jason Momoa, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, just to name a few. Everyone was on board with this idea that Zack Snyder's vision would be able to be put onto the big screen. So, a couple years later pass, people are starting to think and lose hope that this will ever come to pass, but then HBO Max announces that they're starting their own streaming platform. And many people start to think and rumor that HBO Max could, as a selling point to their streaming service, release the Snyder Cut exclusively as their own original movie. So, last summer, HBO Max confirmed that the Snyder Cut was officially in development. They released a trailer for it, and they gave Zack Snyder $30 million to finish his movie. Zack Snyder did very few reshoots, but he did do a couple to finalize his film, and we finally got the finished product yesterday, and I cannot be more excited to share with you guys my review for this movie. So, let's get into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about with this movie is the characters. I'm going to split up this review into different parts, and this is what I want to talk about first. Because the characters and their backstories and how they're fleshed out in this movie has changed, at least for some of them. Cyborg, in particular, is so much better in this movie. He was very boring in the 2016 version, and he is extremely interesting in this one. He gets lots of backstory. His character is fleshed out a lot, and I would dare say that he is the most improved character of this movie compared to the 2016 version, because I really did not care about his character at all before this film, and now I do. I loved Ray Fisher as Cyborg. He did an amazing job. I love his character, and I'm so happy that they were able to improve upon this for the Snyder Cut. And Along with this, Steppenwolf, our main villain, is infinitely better as the main antagonist. He actually has a solid motivation in this movie. He actually has solid reason to fear losing his overall goal, which is to get the mother boxes together as one to defeat the Earth. He has solid motivation for this. He has solid fear to fail at this task. And overall, he is such a better villain. Obviously, we all know his armor is amazing. Him as a character just visually is much better, because if you don't know, in the 2016 version, he wasn't really much to be talked about. He didn't really look that scary. But in this movie, he has entire gold armor, spiky armor. It's kind of hard to describe it. You have to go watch the movie or one of the trailers. But he looks much, much, much better in this version than in the 2016 one. I'm very proud of what they did with him. And for some reason, the last character I want to talk about in here is Batman. For some reason, I liked Ben Affleck's Batman much better in this movie than I did in the 2016 version, even though not a lot has changed about him. For those of you who don't know, I had an unpopular distaste and dislike for Ben Affleck's Batman in both Batman v Superman and 2016 version of Justice League. But Zack Snyder's Justice League has cured my dislike for Ben Affleck's Batman. I love him as Batman now. I'm a bit biased because Dark Knight is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Christian Bale as Batman is always going to hold a special place in my heart. But Ben Affleck's Batman in this movie was spectacular. He really sold it to me as Bruce Wayne / Batman, and I am very, very happy that I liked him this much in the film. For the next part of this review, I'd like to talk about the runtime. For those of you who don't know, this movie is 4 hours long, 4 hours and 2 minutes long to be specific. And in this movie, there are 6 parts. 6 parts and an epilogue. They're pretty much divided sort of like a mini-series, but it's all in one movie. About 20 to 30 minute segments. And like I said, it's 6 parts and then an epilogue, which technically is 7 parts. However you decide to divide that up. But for me, I did not have a problem with the runtime. I did, however, watch it in spurts, I will admit, so that might have affected my opinion of the overall runtime. But I think it would be just as effective as a miniseries, as like a 6-part miniseries, 4-part miniseries. Zack Snyder originally was going to release this as a 4-part series, but he decided to release it as a 4-hour movie. I feel like some people would have liked it better just because they could space out their viewing. But for me, even though this miniseries might have been a little bit better just because it's spacing it out, I still think he did a great job with this 4-hour movie. And its runtime. There are a couple of scenes in here that feel a little bit drawn out, and while the epilogue is great, there's one particular scene that feels really unnecessary. But overall, the runtime is fine, in my opinion, and it still definitely helps giving the Snyder Cut its epic feel. Now let's talk about the different material in this film. What makes this different from 2016's Justice League? Well, for those of you who don't know, Zack Snyder vowed to not use a single frame of Joss Whedon's reshoots from the 2016 version of Justice League, because while Zack Snyder's scenes still, or at least some of them, made it to the 2016 cut, a lot of those scenes in that movie were Joss Whedon's reshoots, and Zack Snyder refused to use any of that. So, what we got in this movie was over 2 hours of new additional material that we haven't seen before. And some of it were reshoots by Zack Snyder himself. There's tons of new footage, but it's still the same general story. Don't think this is going to be a completely different movie. It's really the same general plot, but there are some little things that have changed. Most of it is backstory, giving us a lot more to flesh out with our characters, which is very good. But don't come in here expecting a completely different viewing experience or a completely different movie. There are not really any vast changes to the source material, and while we do get new characters and cameos for this movie, they are not extremely important to the plot of this film. Some last things to finish this off. I want to say that this is a lot darker than the original version. Zack Snyder is known for his dark take on the DC universe, as with Batman v Superman in particular. This is a lot darker than the very light jolly, I should say, and comedic, funny, spoofy 2016 version that Joss Whedon gave us. This still does find funny moments in it. It still pulls off the comedy that is in here really well, much to Ezra Miller's credit as the Flash, whom I loved even more in this film. But overall, the tone of this movie is a lot darker. In conclusion, this is better than the first Justice League in every possible way. It improved on everything that I disliked about the original tremendously. This is a truly epic movie. I am so happy for Zack Snyder and his vision to finally be put on the big screen for all of us to see as fans and as moviegoers and watchers in general. This is an amazing movie. This is insanely close to a 9, but in the end, I'm going to give this a very, very, very high 8 as my score. This is an absolute must-watch if you have HBO Max, and if you were excited for this movie, I promise you, you are not going to be disappointed.